You're watching PEGRI TV, Rhode Island's public access channel.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Advanced Rhode Island. I'm Dan McKee, the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Rhode Island, and each month we do a show to highlight some of the things that we're actively doing in our office, whether it has to do with municipalities or long-term health or the veterans issues and small business issues. And today we're really pleased that we have a representation from the state of Rhode Island of businesses in the state that are anchored in our state, but they do business throughout the country and all over the world, and you're going to hear their stories today. And let me just start. We're going to just go have everybody kind of introduce themselves and tell us, a little bit about what you do. But Keith, tell us a little bit about the work that you do in terms of helping a number of the businesses in the state in terms of doing business, anchoring in Rhode Island, but doing business outside the state.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I'd like to thank Kathy Therieau to my left for inviting me to be here today. I'm with the U.S. Department of Commerce Export Assistance Center here in Providence, Rhode Island. I'm part of the executive branch of the U.S. government. Our mandate and our function is to help Rhode Island companies increase their export sales abroad. We do that using our network of commercial officers located in U.S. consulates and embassies throughout the globe. We are here to help U.S. businesses in whatever their international endeavors are, with our primary focus being on matchmaking and opening doors to new customers.
Well, that's great, and that's the reason we wanted to have you here today, because there's people going to be watching the show that either currently are trying to make that happen in their businesses, or they may be thinking about opening a business that could do exactly that, and then we're going to be able to let them know that they got a resource, right?
Exactly.
Kathy,
right.
tell us a little bit what's going on in commerce.
Thank you also, Lieutenant Governor.
Yes.
Pleasure being here this afternoon.
Yes.
Very pleased. So as Keith mentioned, we work hand in hand. We're actually co-located. We work right next to each other. So it's an excellent example of the state and federal government working together to provide services to Rhode Island businesses. And basically we do export promotion. Every day we're working with companies, introducing them to potential distributors, agents, representatives overseas. My office works in partnership with the Chafee Center at Bryant University. They do a lot of seminars on a variety of export issues. They've got one coming up, International Professional Series, that covers all kinds of issues related to international businesses. We do trade missions. We generally coordinate about 2 or 3 a year. We did one earlier this year to Ireland, and we're doing one to the UAE coming up in April of next year, so we're very excited about that. Many of the businesses that are here this afternoon have gone on these trade missions, and again, what we do on the trade mission is introduce them to potential partners and do very customized matchmaking, again in partnership with the U.S. Commercial Service. We also have the State Trade Export Promotion Program, which is through the SBA. It's a federal government grant that is administered by the Chafee Center at Bryant, and basically it's a flow through. We give companies funding for trade shows overseas. So we give them up to, it's actually $20K per company for a variety of expenses to help them with international promotion, so trade shows, translations, marketing campaigns overseas, consulting services, anything to help them exporting.
Yeah, so you mentioned Bryant University a few times. I was just on a trip to Hong Kong and Taiwan, and then when I went up to the airport in Boston, although hopefully we get green to actually start flying there as well, which
Yes.
we're doing a great job on the international issues, right? Both in
Right.
Ireland, right,
Ireland.
and Norway, and so. But who was in the lounge as we were waiting to get on the plane? But not the president of Bryant, right,
Yeah.
Mr. McKee. So
Yeah,
that's what a great connection for Rhode Island to have in terms of this international work. There's no
Yeah.
question about that.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely. They have a campus in Zhuhai, China, which they opened up, I think it was about 2 years ago. So really up to a great start in Zhuhai.
Yeah, and that's what we want to let people know that are watching the show, that there's activity going on, and then there's higher education that actually is kind of dovetailing to support that activity, which I know the Chafee Center does, having been involved with Ray and a couple other people over there over the years. So thank you
Yeah.
for being here today, and thanks for your work. Pete, give us a little overview of what's going on in your life.
Yeah, hi Dan, thanks
Yes.
for having me.
Yes.
Pete Kaczmarek, I'm the president of Mearthane Products in Cranston, Rhode Island. We're a 52-year-old developer and manufacturer of precision machine parts based on polyurethane chemistry. It's a rubber-like material that we've pioneered the use of in many applications, including way back in the 70s, skateboard wheels made from polyurethane. The first manufacturer was Mearthane Products. And we're still known today for our inline skate wheels. They're the fastest wheels in the world. And as a result of that, those products and our work with large global OEMs, over 55% of what we manufacture in our Cranston facility gets directly exported outside of the United States to over 25 countries. So we were actually named the Small Business Administration Small Business Exporter of the Year for Rhode Island this past year.
Well, congratulations on that, and what a story that, you know, and you're kind of in the athletic field if you're doing that type of things, right, in terms of the production that you're in the manufacturing.
It's a smaller part of our business,
Yeah.
but it's the one that is most interesting to people, I think. Most of what we do is actually in office automation, ATMs, scanners, anything that's moving paper or currency, we have a special capability to design and manufacture products for.
Well, thank you for being here as well.
My pleasure.
Let's go back here to Pete, which I've visited your shop, right, in Warren, and tell us a little bit about your business and how that started and where you're kind of, you know, working
Yeah,
in
my
the
name's
Rhode Island
Peter
end.
King, and again,
Yes.
as everyone said, thanks for inviting
Yes.
us along,
Yes.
telling us our story, Dan. But
Yeah.
I run WaterRower, where we manufacture rowing machines, fitness equipment, go into gyms, into home use and stuff. And we export, much like Peter, over 55% of our production. All the rowing machine production is done down in Warren, Rhode Island, and we ship to. We've got 14 offices scattered around the globe, owned offices, and then distributors beyond that. So we manage pretty deeply into our marketplaces. Our head office is actually in the UK, but most of our staff is based here in Rhode Island. Over 200 people now.
Yeah, and you just expanded the business, right? When I was down there,
Yeah,
you
you
were in
said you
construction.
visited the new manufacturing building. We
Yes.
just opened in June. We opened the new office building, which is the, so we've got a campus there of, what is about 90,000 square feet and adjacent another 50,000 square feet. So yeah, it's a busy operation. We're pumping out close to 300 machines a day now, so you know,
And
from humble beginnings.
when I did tour, you had some really high energy staff there as well. So you're employing a number of people in the state, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've got, as I say, over 200 people.
Over 200
and that's balanced between manufacturing, which can be from entry-level positions all the way through to web developers and marketeers and videographers, graphic designers, and obviously the salespeople. So it's quite a broad spectrum, and there's a lot of generates a lot of value for our little town of Warren.
It sure does, and for the state of Rhode Island.
Yeah, and the state of Rhode
And
Island.
thanks for being here. We're going to hear a little bit more. Hopefully, we'll be able to put a couple pictures up when we
Yeah.
show this of actually what those rowing machines look like and how the technology works there. We'll hear a little bit more about that later. Steve, please introduce yourself as well.
Sure, thanks, Dan. I'm Steve Olyha, Chief Executive Officer of Finlays Extracts and Ingredients. Finlays is part of a huge globally based company in London. We own everything from Cathay Pacific Airlines to U.S. Cold Storage. We're the 4th largest Coke bottler in the world. And of course, our business here in the U.S., which is Finlays, we are the largest coffee and tea extract manufacturer here in the United States, and the only one that specializes just in those extracts. So people often ask, what is an extract and what is it used in? Well, our tea extracts are used in a lot of ready-to-drink cold tea beverages that you can buy in supermarkets and convenience stores. Our coffee extracts are used in just about every major ice cream brand that's got a coffee flavor here in the U.S. So it's a pretty interesting business. The way that Finlays got started and got our foothold here in Rhode Island is we acquired the Autocrat brand. So most people are familiar.
Okay.
Certainly if you're a Rhode Islander, you've heard of Autocrat coffee milk. It's the official state drink of Rhode Island. And Finlay's acquired Autocrat 4 years ago.
Yes, and so this weekend we'll be doing Operation Holiday Cheer, and I believe a lot of coffee syrup was going to be in those packages. So thank you.
I hope so. Thank
Yes,
you.
I'm
Thank
sure
you.
they are. And also I was at the Warwick ice cream shop yesterday,
Yep.
where they make this specialty item, which is the coffee.
Autocrat coffee milk ice
Autocrat-
cream.
That's
Yep.
correct. And
Yep.
so I want to test that tonight. That's just going to be really, really good.
You'll enjoy it.
Yes. Keith, tell us a little bit about your shop and what goes on there, and where you're located, and how many people you got employed, and that type of thing.
Hi, Dan. Thank you again for allowing us to participate in this event. My name is Michael Sigourney, and I'm the CEO and founder of a small business that's about 30 years old. We're located in Warren, Rhode Island, and we manufacture small devices under the brand name Room Alert. So they're used by about 500,000 people around the world to monitor data centers and all types of manufacturing production facilities. Basically, we specialize in monitoring IT equipment, but we can be used to monitor people or any type of property. And the idea is that we monitor environmental conditions. So people say, what is that? So we're monitoring temperature, humidity, moisture, flood, things that put your business or your property at risk. And so we're monitoring those conditions, and then when thresholds are passed, we instantly use all the modern technologies to alert people. We allow you to log data, graph data, take automatic corrective action. So you can be anywhere in the world and know that you have a problem, for example, monitoring ingredients for tea here, or productions facility at Peter's building, and get an alert, and then your staff can respond. So you're saving time and money. You're allowing your staff to respond quickly. We estimate that we sell many billions and billions and billions of dollars across our customer base. We're used in 185 of 196 countries. We monitor every branch, every department of the U.S. government, every state government. We're used, we're a requirement at every Amazon facility. You know, they just built a facility, you know, right next door in Fall River.
And we want them here in Rhode Island.
We want them here in Rhode Island. I know Stephen Pryor's working hard on
Yes,
that.
yes.
So we're proud to be here, and that's pretty much what we do.
Well, that's very impressive, Mike. Sorry I called you Keith.
That's all right.
But
We were gonna let that slide.
But I'm getting this down.
We were gonna let it slide.
And certainly your story there. How many people are employed at your?
We only have about 30 people.
Yeah.
We hire interns. We work with a lot of the local educational institutions to bring mostly engineering people in, some marketing people. And everything is made in the United States. We have a big manufacturing facility in Pennsylvania. We do some manufacturing here in Rhode Island and Portsmouth. All of our design, support, and the management is based in Warren. We bought a huge 150-year-old mill and reconverted it, and that's really our whole warehouse and headquarters, and it's a nice little place.
Yeah, so our theme of our office has been the number 39. There's 39 cities and towns in the state of Rhode Island, and I kind of say everyone's important. Everybody who lives in those communities is important. And every business that's in those communities is important. So when I've toured around, and I've been down to Warren at a number of places down there as one of the communities, but in every community. So when we go visit a farm, we do a farm tour, and we had the farmers in here, you know, that at one of the previous TV shows. We go to all 39 communities and we ask them these questions. They're very simple. What's going on that's going okay, and what's going on that could be better, and how do we improve on both? And then the idea that came to me for today's show was because I had visited businesses around the state, one in Hopkinton that does like back office billing for online sales, and B2B Gateway is the name of the company. They just opened up to a 20,000 square foot new facility down there. But up in Lincoln, Rhode Island, where they have a phone bank that does service calls all around the country for Kmart's and Subways. If they need a toilet fix or they need a new window, they're all doing that. And even a young girl out in Situate area that made goat soap, right? Rachel made some goat soap, and that. So this idea, it was a striking one to me with Ivriella down in Westerly as well. Hey, we got businesses here in Rhode Island taking advantage of the abilities that technology can provide them today, and is doing business all over the world. And I wanted people to know that you're examples of that. So thanks for sharing the initial part of your story. What I would like to hear a little bit is about what's going on in your business, or in your world right now, that you feel as though is good, and that one of the reasons that you are anchored in Rhode Island, and you know, open that up. But before we get there, let's just go back here and tell us, you know, some of the things that you're working on, you know, in terms of relationship building and the support that you're providing, that those who are listening to the show, who are thinking about doing this type of thing, know that those resources are available to them.
Well, I think the most important thing for people watching to know is that Rhode Island, from my experience, has one of the best and most seamless relationships between the federal and the state governments. Companies will come to the Chafee Center, they will call Kathy, or they'll call me. It doesn't matter where they come into the system. We deliver quality services. The three of us will work together for a particular client to make sure they're either export ready or that we can answer their questions and deliver them the services that they expect. Not every state has this ability, and with the STEP grant in place, as Kathy mentioned, we've seen an increasing number of exporters come in through our doors to ask questions about what's going on internationally, how can we take advantage of your services, what's there for you to offer to us.
Yeah, so well, Kathy, why don't you tell us a little bit about, you know, the things that you're working on, but I'm particularly interested in when you talked about that there might be some level of funding that can be,
Sure.
that could be, you know, combined with the local and state and the federal.
Yeah, so again, the funding is through the SBA. It's the STEP program, and basically we give grants out to Rhode Island businesses. They have to meet the eligibility guidelines of the SBA and be, you know, be small businesses under 500 employees generally.
Well,
and
that
have,
qualifies for all
yeah,
of Rhode Island.
most exactly.
You know, so that's one of the things that we,
yeah, there's a
that qualifies for
handful.
our whole state, basically.
Handful that are not, but
Yes.
most are, yes.
Yes.
So, and then basically they can receive funding. It's up to $7,500 for every, you know, trade show that they do overseas, and then a variety of other expenses. So, interpreters, marketing campaigns. Again, if they needed a consultant, if they need to meet foreign guidelines, CE certification, a variety of things. And we'll work with them to help them. You know, as Keith mentioned, it's kind of a turnkey solution. We work with them to see if they're export ready and then walk them through the process. We are working on some specific items, upcoming events. Again, we have a trade mission. We do about 2 per year, and we're recruiting now for one to the UAE. We are also looking at we're going to have a Rhode Island booth at the JEC show, which is the largest composite show in the world, and it's in Paris in March. So we've been working close with the Rhode Island Composites Alliance, Wendy Mackey, RIMTA, and recruiting companies to go to that. Last year we had 4 Rhode Island composites companies that were in the same booth. And basically through the STEP grant, we covered the cost of the booth completely for them, and then additional marketing expenses. So it's really, you know, a wonderful opportunity for them to go out and expose their products to the world. Right now we have some companies that are a show called Medica in Dusseldorf, Germany. We do a Best of New England pavilion there. And every year it's all of New England, but we get about 2 or 3 Rhode Island companies per year at that show. So that's the kind of...
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons that, again, you know, I repeat myself, but we want to generate the information. We were just met with Scott Jensen, right at Department of Labor, and they have these training grants. They have these training programs. And they sat with me last week, and I said, well, educate me, because we're talking to businesses throughout the state. In fact, I was talking to one yesterday, and I said, you know, if you got job training that you would want to do internally, we should explore that. And so we want them to, we want the general business community and the residents in the state of Rhode Island to know that there are things that are going on, and we need to make sure that we try to do everything we can to let them know what's going on, right? So we, for instance, we have a young man that is up at Babson. He graduated from Cumberland, Cumberland High School, and he's involved with international business right now out of Babson. And he anchors right here in Rhode Island, and he's like talking about different ways that he's communicated into China when he was a high school student. So we need to help everybody that is an entrepreneur, you know, get a you know, the benefit of the work that's going on. So, you know, I think you'll hear you'll get a couple phone calls here inquiring, I think, just from this show alone.
I hope so.
And our office is very much available, so anybody that's out there that wants to explore some of the ideas that we're talking about, we want them to do that. Pete, tell us something that's going on good in your business.
Oh, there's a lot that's going on well.
Yeah.
Thanks. First of all, we're growing. We're going to grow double digits this year, which is a nice year for us.
And what type of employment do you have as well?
We have about 75 people.
Yeah, good.
All in Rhode Island. We also just made our first acquisition. We acquired a small company in Bristol, on the other side of the bay.
Nice.
to
One of
give
the
us-
39. We don't discriminate.
So now we're in 2 of the 39.
That's right.
And working on another. But one of the other things, I'm glad you mentioned the DLT grants. We just took advantage of a pretty significant grant to completely redo our business information system for the company. It was we had an old system. It was one of the things that we were vulnerable. We felt, my partner and I felt. And we were able to go to the state and get a grant to train all the people on the new system. We just went live at the beginning of November, and things are going
How
surprisingly
did you hear about
well.
that, Pete? How did you hear about that was available to you?
Well, the state has done a pretty good job for Mearthane, letting us understand the different programs. And Scott Jensen actually visited our facility a couple months ago, and we talked a little bit about what we were trying to do. And he said, "Well, you just..."
He's an upbeat guy, don't you think?
Oh my God! yeah, he's
Yes.
great. And he put us in touch with the right people, and what we were working on fit, the profile of the grant, and we couldn't have done that project without it. We also make very good use of the STEP grants. We're a serial grantee, I guess you would say. And we also attend most of the trade missions because we found, in fact, the most recent one in Ireland, we have a number of really good prospects to continue to grow. So I'm a big fan of what Kathy and Keith do.
Where's your growth coming from? You say you have some growth, anticipated growth. Where's that coming from?
We recently started supplying parts into ATMs. And the ATMs these days are getting a lot more complex. You're trying to do more with them. You can put a stack of checks and cash in all at one time, and it sorts them for you. And that complexity creates an opening for our kinds of materials. And so we work with the largest and second largest ATM makers in the world, and as they proliferate their machines, not just in the US, but probably more importantly in other parts of the developing world, Mearthane parts are in those machines.
Great. And I'm happy that you shared the benefit of those trade missions. This is something that sometimes is not clearly understood, and I think I understand it a little bit more today than before I became a lieutenant governor. I chaired the National Lieutenant Governors Association this year and met lieutenant governors from all over the country, and they would really advocate, whether it was John Sanchez from New Mexico or Kim Reynolds out in Iowa. They would definitely advocate on, get out of the country and see what's going on out there, because that's going to help your businesses in the state that you come from. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think it's very
fantastic.
valuable.
It's a great service.
And
at the
my
state.
visit to Hong Kong and Taiwan with 2 local business people, with Mayor Diosa and Town Councilwoman Cano from Pawtucket. Yes, we've already seen some small benefits of that short trip, but also we think that we're incubating some ideas on cyber technology and security issues right now with some of the Taiwan representatives that are here in New York City. We've already met with them. So that networking, you don't know where it leads, but it could lead to some very, very powerful economic benefit for the community. So thank you for taking advantage of that. Give me an idea what's happening good out there, Pete.
We keep growing. I mean, we wind back the clock 30 years, well 20 years. When we acquired the US side of the business, we had 1.5 employees and 100 odd machines a year in manufacturing. Now we're doing 300 a day and 200 employees, so we've grown enormously. One of the benefits of Rhode Island, I guess, in those early days was just ample access to cheap office space, and that it was an entrepreneurial startup at that point. And without that, we wouldn't have been in Rhode Island, no doubt, unless that was available. So. But, based on
that's
the back
an
of
advantage that Rhode Island does
really
have
has,
in terms of its rental rates,
Yep.
Comparatively speaking,
Cost
and
of
particularly if
living.
you got the New York
Cost of
comparing,
And
right?
you got that good
Boston.
academic base there as well, which is important. Well, it can be a struggle with finding employees, though. That's always tough, but any business will tell you that.
Yeah.
But you know, I applaud what the state is doing. What I've just come direct here from Bryant University, and we've been sitting down with the Chafee Centre guys.
Yes.
And going through the STEP program you spoke, seeing how that can help.
These guys could be good friends, right?
Quite.
Yes.
We see them around a lot. It's and you know, you say about Rhode Island being small and joking about 500 people being a big company, but that's part of the appeal of Rhode Island as well. It's not too big. It's small enough that you can know the people and see them at multiple events. Makes it a little bit easier to communicate, and no doubt why you guys work so closely together. But you know, we've been up with the Chafee, another committee that I'm on, a manufacturer CEO group in the East Bay area. And half the panel here is from the East Bay.
Yes.
Or you know, and half of your business from the East Bay now. But and the Department of Labour is doing a luncheon today. I would have been at it this morning. It was supposed to be a breakfast. Just to get everyone there, they did a luncheon. But that's all about developing training programs specific to the businesses in East Bay. So there is a lot going on to try and promote business from the governmental side, most definitely. But you know, the business basics are pretty good as well. You know, I guess if one floor of having all that cheap mill space is, there's probably not enough new building space built. I know Finlay have just expanded quite a bit. We've just put on another, what is it, about 20, 30, probably 45,000 square feet, so we can do that. It can be a bit challenging to try and do that in Rhode Island.
And the more awareness on fitness has got to be helping your business, right?
True,
I mean,
yeah.
there's certainly a
we
value.
continue to grow.
And that was our business for years, was
Yep.
in the fitness business.
You know, so.
And so, yeah, we know that that's a really important thing.
And we've-
And you have a very unique design to your
Yeah.
role, right? Tell us just a little bit about
Well,
that.
the
which I think
WaterRower is
pretty-
based around a water flywheel design.
There's a rowing machine, by the way.
Rowing machine,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. You sit down on and
And
you're
it was
rowing.
designed by a Yale University oarsman who actually was a classmate of Senator Whitehouse's. And rumour has it that Senator Whitehouse has the first ever WaterRower. But that was 30 years ago now. But yeah, it's based around the water flywheel dynamic, and it's a bit of a quirky design. A lot of it made in wood. We do them in walnut and cherry, and you'll see it on the House of Cards. Was the rowing machine used on that. So yeah, and it's grown and grown in popularity. Now we're shipping to Orange Theory Fitness. You'll see them in all those gyms. There's quite a few in Rhode Island now. There's 1,200 listed for across the country, and we put between 10 and 20 machines in each of those gyms. So we're selling a lot domestically. It's grown enormously. We're doubling every 2 years at the moment. But as I say, most of our business is that export market. And as these I've just hosted our Argentinian office and our Brazilian office and our Mexican office and our Spanish, which is managed from our Spanish office. And they loved it here. They stayed down at Bristol Harbour Inn a couple of nights ago and thought the place was actually absolutely charming. We'll come back again. But you know, they're quite intrigued that we can have such an international business, well run with a lot of passionate people, and so much energy in the organisation in this little provincial backwater, which is Warren. You know?
Yes,
But, and you can.
It's a great community, and
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
But I think it's also to your credit that you were ready for like that Orange Theory, right?
True.
That's a relatively new franchise strategy out
Yep,
there right
yep.
now.
It's just
But
a
you
couple
had the
years old.
reputation out of Warren, Rhode Island, that you could access that, and that's not a small amount of
Yeah,
business.
and continue to help them develop the technology that's going to move them forward, and all that's done in our premises in Warren. It's,
Well,
yeah, it's
congratulations on that, and it's great.
Thank you.
Steve, tell a little bit of what's going on good in your shop and your
Sure.
business. Yes.
Now, I'm going to continue with this, what seems to be a common theme around growth for all of us. So I mentioned before, Finlays is one of the world's largest tea and coffee extract companies. We own our own tea plantations in Sri Lanka, in Argentina, in Kenya, along with manufacturing facilities there. And we've been blessed with a lot of very dynamic growth over the course of the last couple of years. 4 years ago, we had circa 70, 75 employees. Today, we've got over 130 here in the state, which is pretty significant growth. But we also realized a year or two ago that what was going to drive our future growth was going to be innovation. That in order for us to continue to be wildly successful as a company, we had to think about innovation and be bringing our customers and our consumers new ideas, ideas that they hadn't thought of before, in some cases capturing or taking advantage of relative new trends in the market. So we made a decision globally that we were going to open our first ever but true world-class Research and Development and Innovation Center. So we had a couple of choices to make. The first was what geography were we going to put it in, and we chose the U.S. And then the next decision was, well, where in the U.S.? It's a big country. We had one location, which is currently where our corporate headquarters is in Lincoln, Rhode Island. And after a very, very competitive process over the course of about a year, we made the decision to build that facility in Rhode Island. And in fact, it's recently been completed and is up and running down in Quonset. And I have to say, Rhode Island made that decision very easy for us. The Quonset Development Corporation was actively involved in encouraging us to move to that particular location. The governor was actively involved. The Commerce Secretary, Stephen Pryor, was personally involved in the conversations. And it was, of all the states that we talked to, it was the one that made the decision easiest for us.
Well, that's good to hear. And I think that's a story that doesn't get told enough. I mean, I'll give you two examples of that, where I'm in Taiwan and I'm meeting with an education foundation group, and their son went to Stanford University, one of the members of the executive board. And so he introduces me himself, and then I'm talking to him, what do you do? He said, well, when I was looking to open up a business, we were in Stanford in California, we looked at every state in the country, and now he doesn't even know I'm from Rhode Island, and we decided that we would open it up in Rhode Island. So I think a lot of times we're our own worst critics, and sometimes rightfully so. But when you're talking about what you just said, and then I was just talking to somebody yesterday on another business that said that they were able to get through a process in the state, which I know we're concentrating on quite a bit on the permitting strategy and the other regulation strategies, and to open up a business in about half the time than it would take in a bordering state that they were actually looking at, and they were very complimentary about that. So I know we got to stay on our toes, but we also can really help the economy in the state of Rhode Island, to be highlighting areas that are being helpful. And then as people hear about that on a show like this, or worked when you're out in the field, or with Liz Tanner and others that's doing the work, and it creates resources, and we want people to know that if they make a call or they find out about something, we want them to feel comfortable to make that call, right? We want them to feel comfortable about actually following through on that, and then call us on it if we don't follow up. But figure that you're welcome. That phone call is very welcome, right? So thank you for offering that information up. Mike, tell us something that's going on good with your company, which is, you said, is in 175 different countries. I think I heard you say something like that.
Don't be short on a stand.
What was it? 100 what? 85?
185.
All right, I wasn't listening.
So no worries. There's only 196. And we're really not supposed to sell to some. We might be there, but we're not supposed to know, and I don't think we do know. And anyway. We're very fortunate. We continue to grow. We've grown for years at about 15 to 18% a year. This year, I think we're going to blow past that. It comes back to us reinvesting in really innovation. We're a technology company, so I've operated for 30 years under the impression that we could be wiped out tomorrow by a big company. We've seen our competitors either fade because we've been successful or they've been acquired. One of them was recently much smaller than us, was just acquired for $75 million, so we're kind of excited about that. But
yes.
Anyway, we continue to improve our products. That's very important. We're very focused on two key initiatives right now. One is making sure that with all the new regulations because of online transactions and things, GDPR, for example, over in Europe, we want to be the most secure, focused product in our market niche. We want to be the Coca-Cola of environment monitoring, for example. We already sell to like 98% of the Fortune 1000. Like you said, we've got pretty good distribution. UPS says we ship to more countries every month than any company in all of New York City and all of New England. And that's a nice little merit badge that we wear with pride, even though we're small. But security is a real key thing, and then we're trying to really go deep. So right now, I'm traveling around the world, for example, partly because of some of the trade show stuff that we're working with Keith and Katherine, and also Linda Wolf is great to work with. So we've been to Ireland, for example. We went there with Pete just a couple months ago. I'll be back there on Monday and Tuesday of next week meeting with people. We're going to be at a trade show. The week after that, we'll be at Frankfurt at a trade show. And a lot of that introduction is through some of the programs that they have. We've taken advantage of the STEP program, which we believe in wholeheartedly. There's a lot of very valuable programs, not just for companies that sound successful like us, but even smaller companies to become successful. And I'll just pat these guys on the back again and say that they're extremely easy to work with, and they're very giving in terms of interfacing with companies at all different sizes and all different types. It's really unique when we travel around the world. The diversity of people within our group is amazing. And we've actually created a lot of friends. In fact, this evening, we're having a small little get-together with about 70 different CEOs from businesses around the country. We're disappointed that you had something come up and you won't be there tonight, but hopefully you'll see our building another time. Yes. We're actually right down the street from Peter, and I also live right next to his facility, which is gorgeous, and they're a very professional, respectful business organization. I can't say it enough. You know, it's such a pleasing thing to live in a community, especially the East Bay, which is so beautiful.
Yes.
And have a business
that
is run professionally and
yes.
has respect for its community. And they gave him a tough time, but we tried to support it, and he's made it, and his building is beautiful. So there's a lot of things happening in the East Bay.
Good. Well, we're fans. It's one of the 39. I'm a fan of every one.
Although,
I got to admit, I do have to admit, being a mayor of our town in Cumberland for 12 years, and when I go out and about, there's always a connection in Cumberland somehow, and I always say, you know, I give a thumbs up to Rhode Island and everything's going on, but when I see somebody from Cumberland, I give 2 thumbs up. But so yes, I have a little partial. I'm a little partial, but it is a beautiful state. And I tell you, when the other education thing for me was the traveling as well. So traveling and meeting, going to Arizona, going to New Mexico on 1- and 2-day type of trips, meeting with the lieutenant governors there. 7 of those lieutenant governors are now governors. So you know, so now we have contacts into the governor's office in 7 states in the country, but through the lieutenant governors. But they all say that Rhode Island, the recollection of Rhode Island is a beautiful state, and it's very interesting how they say exactly what you just said, Mike.
What's interesting as a technology company, you'd think we would have wanted to stay in Irvine where we started, but this was before the internet. So I actually moved here to be closer to Europe, and we selected Rhode Island not because I'd ever really been here in a big way, but because it was between Boston and New York and Philadelphia.
Yes.
And the quality of living, though, being near the water, the calmness of the business environment, the proximity to higher education at a very quality-oriented level is just fantastic, and our people are very strong.
Yeah, and you mentioned the technology, and I'd like to maybe just go back this way and with the business owners here today. Tell us a little bit about how the technology is allowing you to function here in Rhode Island in a way that you can be productive and still enjoy the water and all the landscapes that we do enjoy here in Rhode Island. Tell us, Mike, a little bit about the technology.
Well, obviously in an online world, you can be anywhere that you want to be.
Yes.
So there's still a physical nature to it. So to me, I want to be closer to Europe because that's a big part of our business, even though we're growing all over. But I like to get up before the West Coast, not after the East Coast. That's a huge thing that I really like. Being close to New York and Boston, where there's a lot of financial interests and a lot of business prospects, is very nice. A lot of trade shows concentrate on big metropolitan areas, and there's other resources that are attracted to large metropolitan areas. And yet, we don't want to be there because of the cost of doing business, because of many inconveniences. We want to be in a rural area. We're very rural. Peter can look out his office, and we can see, we share a farm between us, basically.
But gets into his yard now.
Yeah, so the farmer there is squatting, and the cows get out and they get into his property. They're squatting on my land and Peter's land.
Yes.
But they get through the fence and they're on our lawn, and they'll chase the kids, you know.
But yet the people you're talking to, either by internet or through whatever ways you're communicating, they think you might be in this high-rise in New York City or something like that,
That's a perfect point. So they see us as a very large company, when really we're a collection of very talented people that are very committed, small group of 30 people. And yet we're able to live in a community where you can have your grandkids walk out in the yard and see cows, and you're literally a quarter of a mile from work. It's just lovely, looking out at the water and taking advantage. We were just at a Lyle Lovett concert last week. There's so many things that happen in Providence, and it's accessible. You know, it's not like a big city where it's a drama to get there.
Too far away either. I mean, you say you're traveling a lot, so you're right. You can do so much by the internet. I had a board meeting. I had my controller from London come over, and so we had a board meeting on Friday. We need to speak to the marketing guy, and on Skype we were talking to him. He was in London at 8 o'clock, and we were at 3 o'clock in Rhode Island. It was perfect. And then next day, Jason goes up to Boston, and less than an hour away. without traffic. And, and then he's on a plane back to London. And now of course, you've got flights out of Providence as well.
Yeah, those are
internationally.
fantastic.
I think the
Which is a
investment we're
blessing.
making at Green is going to be is going to reap
And yet
tremendous benefits. I
Yeah, but
believe.
yet it's from a lifestyle, as Mike says. I've
Yeah.
got one traffic light on the way home. I mean, my prior residence was in London. You can imagine what that was like with traffic moving at 3 miles an hour. It would take me an hour and a half to get the same distance I have home. So there's a quality of life here is very good. And also the cost of living is quite low. So you know, we've got a good dynamic team, 27 people in the customer service, engineering, graphic design. And we couldn't afford that in London, or if we got closer to Boston, or if we got closer to New York. And yet we've got these shipping routes here, we've got the Logan Airport, and so, you know, it's got good
Yes.
international connections, because and our businesses are all international.
Yes.
And I'm sure Finlay as well, with
Yeah.
your connections with Europe.
Yeah, Steve or Keith, you want to just
Very
weigh in on like the benefit of the technology and you know, I think the point's being made here that you can do business here
Yep.
and still do business around the world in a way that anybody can, right?
Well, I think about technology from really two perspectives as it relates to the new R&D and Innovation Center that we built. The first is the infrastructure, or what the Brits call the kit itself, which is pharmaceutical grade, absolutely what people nowadays call bleeding edge, and will allow us to focus on solution and product innovation for the future. But just as importantly is the communication infrastructure. So a lot of our customers are global customers. They're really big multinationals that do business here in the United States, but also all around the world. And the ability to connect with those customers using the video conference capabilities that we put in, the screens that we put in, is you know, a huge competitive advantage in that we're able to connect with these customers, have regular conversations with them, and this is really important for the state and for our business too. That kind of sophistication through communication gives them conviction that they ought to come visit us. They ought to actually come to Rhode Island, that they ought to walk through our facility, they ought to see the kind of innovation that we're doing, they ought to see the kind of technology infrastructure that we built and become business partners of ours. Because from our perspective, utopia in an innovation center like that is to have a major international customer visit Rhode Island and say, I want to work here with you, and actually put their people in our innovation center and create new product solutions in partnership with us here in the state.
Yeah, and we want to deliver that message to young entrepreneurs, right? When I was chaired my last meeting down in Kentucky and down in Nashville, I asked all lieutenant governors to come in and tell me something that you're doing that actually you're doing, not something you're thinking about doing,
Yep.
right? So one of them was to do this, in Kentucky they did this young entrepreneur program, and they got 700 kids to give presentations on what their business would look like if they actually opened up a business. And you know, these young kids or college students or recent college grads, they're looking at the world in a way that we would have looked at the world, you know, 20 years ago or something like that, 25 years ago. So we want to deliver that message. That's why we're going to go out and kind of duplicate what they did in Kentucky, and we're going to be in all the high schools in the state, and we're saying, hey, this is a program that we're going to do, and we're going to raise a little bit of money and do a little scholarship for them like they did in Kentucky. But we want to deliver the message. When I go to all the universities and meet with the business classes, whether it's Bryant, I've been at Bryant several times meeting with business classes, we want to deliver the message that you're delivering here today. Rhode Island's a really good place to be, and you can do your business, whatever it might look like, here in Rhode Island, in particular if it goes outside of our borders.
Well, one of the real advantages the state has for us is the proximity to higher education. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Johnson & Wales University, you know, one of the top culinary schools in the country. Well, we're a company that prides itself on innovation primarily around beverages, but around beverages and food. So we formed a partnership with Johnson & Wales University where we actually involve their students in product innovation. We've done the same with Bryant University, where we've partnered with a couple of their marketing professors and actually run projects where one of their marketing classes will work on one of our brands and create a marketing program for them. So the opportunity to interact with those high-level universities and take advantage of the students, which happen to be, those millennials are right in our target audience, is a tremendous advantage for us.
We should be recruiting there. That's why I've gone to every college campus in the state of Rhode Island and say, hey, there's a place for you here. I would always say, how many people from Rhode Island are here? And then you get like 2 or 3 people over there. The majority of the people at these universities are from outside the state, especially our private universities, right? Only 10% of our Providence College come from Rhode Island. 90% come from outside the country or outside our state. So we should really be kind of corralling that entrepreneurship, and this show here is exactly about that. You can do business here. Pete, do you have anything weighing on the technology at all, you thinking?
I would like to. One of the things that we used a STEP grant for was to overhaul our website and give it an international translation capability. And we see the internet as the great leveler of of competition, that we can compete globally with companies many times our size if we have a compelling message. Our website's accessible, it's easy to get answers, and most of our business comes now through internet inquiries from everywhere. Very seldom from the Northeast, mostly from other parts of the U.S. and all over the world.
So do you invest dollars? For instance, we had the owners of Luca and Donnie here, which is a jewelry company in Cranston, and they do business all over the country and all over the world, and they were talking about the platforms that they were using to do that marketing. Yeah. Is that something that you've started to enter into recently or in the past?
Yeah, I guess we're now in the Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook age. And,
yes.
And that's, our target audience are designers, product designers and design engineers. And the way they get their information now is on the internet. They don't get it through trade magazines. They don't necessarily get it through walking trade shows. So when they have a problem, they've got to find you through the internet very quickly. And one of the ways that you come up the rankings is your use of social media. It's been very successful for us. At the trade mission in Ireland, we met with the largest industrial design firm in Ireland, and we're following up with a webinar for 15 of their engineers to teach them about our polyurethane chemistry and technology and how they can design products with it. And making use of the webinar technology, and as far as they know, we are a much larger company than we actually are, because we can project that.
And that's a great message when you're talking about your entrepreneur center, your innovation center. The more we corral, the homegrown as well as the transplanted, I say at least we should have a brain drain exchange. If we lose somebody like my son Matt went to New York City for 10 years after he graduated from business school, now he's back in this area. But we at least should be able to hold on, and I think that's a role of the business community, not only to be aware that we need to keep our innovators in the state that are actually physically here, but attract those from outside the state. And I see that the business community could play a substantial role in that. Talking to whether these young entrepreneurs that are at our universities show up at your business, right, or they show up at Peter's business, the state benefits by that that action, right? Exactly. And so I would like to spend like the last part of the show something I consider positive, in terms of if something could be improved, or something is going on that's creating an unlevel playing field for us here in Rhode Island, that we should be knowing about. And I give you a couple examples. So when we're doing our TV shows in front of the audience, we'll ask the same questions we're asking you here today. And we have identified a couple unlevel playing fields, right, in terms of businesses that kind of compete with bordering states. And we found, and this is it's one of those kind of John Wooden sayings, which I kind of, it's the small details that create the big opportunities, right? That you got to take care of these small details. So what we're finding is like on microbrewing, which is a big expanding business right now in the state of Rhode Island. And I was just at a brewery in Warwick that's put in $1.5 million through a small business loan to expand their business in their showroom. Down in Westerly alone, they've invested almost $2 million in their business down there, Gray Sale down in Westerly. This is an expanded business. But what we find out is that in Rhode Island, we're taxing their kegs, their physical kegs. They see that as part of their manufacturing, yet in Massachusetts and Connecticut, they don't tax the kegs. Now, it seems like a small matter because maybe it's $1,000, $2,000 a year, whatever it might be, but that's the difference between showing somebody investing here and somebody investing there, and we need to kind of figure out how to level the playing field. We're saying the same thing on some paint recycling programs where we're charging the consumers in the hardware stores more than they should. So I'm not looking like for the home runs here. I think it's these small pieces where there creates unlevel playing field. So, and I don't want to put you on the spot today, but I kind of told you that I was going to ask the question. So if you have something to offer, then offer it in a way. But also even in the areas that we're in, I mean, what are the type of things that we're identifying as in the state working with our businesses that we see that there's a need to really level the playing field. I see it also in the idea of saying, hey, small businesses are important in our state. We need, close your eyes and think about the state of Rhode Island without small businesses, right? You wouldn't have the 200, the 30, this one, that. Where the heck would people earn a living? So we need to really double down, I think, on the small business interest. And so if and I agree, when I was a mayor, we invested in, maintaining CVS. We had a 600,000 square foot expansion of CVS in town of Cumberland while I was mayor, and we worked through all the real estate things, all the zoning, all the neighborhood issues. So we need the blue chips, but the small businesses, we need to double down there. So share some of the things that maybe come to your mind, or you can pass if you want, but share some of the things that you think that we could be doing a little bit better on behalf of our small businesses. And then when we get to you guys, everybody's got about a minute. If you have one or two things you want to share, please share it. I'm taking notes, by the way.
For me, I think it's outreach. Kathy and I have come across many businesses who don't know about the grants that are available, so that they will apply too late. Or there are plenty of instances where companies, we tell them that the grants are available and they don't take advantage of them, whether it's because they're too busy or because they have other things going on. But there are funds available to help them go to certain places and certain destinations, do marketing, improve their business climate, and they simply don't take advantage. And so I think the biggest issue, number one, is to let them know what we do and how we can help them. And number two is to make sure, or let them know, that they should take advantage of them. It's of no cost to them, and it can help them tremendously.
And so on that, and we got about 10 minutes left here, but on that, one of the things that is talked about, we partner in on those live shows with chambers, so we're all in on the chambers. But not everybody's a member of an association or chamber, so we may, the point that was made in the meeting I was at this week, we need to make sure that we are all in with everybody that's trying to work out. I mean, and then people who know me, they call me and they say they'll share their story, but people who don't know me, they say, well, I don't know, Dan, why would he answer the phone, right? So that's another thing, is to get the word out that these phone calls are welcomed. And when the phone calls are made, to make sure that we actually welcome the phone call, right? Give us an idea of some things
I would absolutely agree with Keith. It's outreach, because we do events too. For example, we have a trade mission coming up to the UAE, and we go out and recruit companies, but we always welcome new companies. We tend to get the same companies using the services over and over again, which is great. We love it, and that's a sign that it works. But we always want new companies coming in too. So I would absolutely agree with Keith. It's just getting the word out on the street.
And it's the small companies too, right? I mean, when we got a phone call, the Hope on Broad Street in Providence, the parking spots were taken away from retail businesses that rely on that overturn every 15 minutes. They sell a sandwich, or they do this, or they sell some phone time, and that parking was taken away. Now, if they didn't call our office, that parking probably would still not be put back in place, but we worked together to kind of make sure they got the parking back so they could do their business. This is what the small details I'm talking about. So we got to outreach. I'll put my own editorial in, not only to those who are involved in associations, which is really important, but also those companies that may be at the stage where they can't afford to be involved in an association, or quite frankly, it just doesn't make sense for them. So the wider reach that we can have there is good. Give us a thought.
I got 3 quick thoughts.
Okay, good.
First is, I want to put in a plug for free trade agreements. We're a net exporter. Over 50% of what we make gets exported, and we don't want to see any impediments to our free trade policies nationally. We gave the same message to Senator Whitehouse a few weeks ago. We just recently made an acquisition, this company in Bristol, and I think we could have some improvement in the process of getting SBA loans to small businesses, getting the capital to them, streamlining some of the processes, the application processes and the timing, so that they can make use of those funds. It was a pretty arduous process. It ultimately worked out, and we're happy with the financing, but I think there's some attention should be paid to that process. And I think the other thing I would say is that a lot of the great stuff that's going on with the DLT, for example, and the Governor's Workforce Board and things like that are fantastic for manufacturing. They tend to be dominated by large manufacturers. And I think there's most manufacturing in this state is small companies, less than 100 people. And so some effort should be made to really reach out to that community and understand what their specific needs are for training, hiring, attracting talent, that kind of thing. I think that would pay a lot of benefits for the state.
Yeah, those are three good options, and who would thought you'd be talking about free trade in the state of Rhode Island as being an issue, but it is, right?
It's an international issue, for sure.
And we need to be aware of that. When I would go to different embassies, when I'm visiting different embassies, and they buy, you know, if I'm in Canada or in Germany, they'll tell us how much business actually, the transaction, both on the import and export side, and how many jobs are actually related to that, and it's not insignificant.
Most of ours.
Pete.
No, on that import-export side, we've got some products that we manufacture in Germany, and we've got a big customer base in Canada, and now it's easier for us. We brought them all through our US operations and would sell them on with our other products into Canada. And now we're having to, because of the duty barriers and free trade from Europe to Canada, but not to the US, we're having to do it directly to Canada, which is a loss for us in Warren, and actually complicates things, right. and adds value, but not as much as destruction of value as the tariff savings. So that's one thing, and not to be, you know, we've been up at Bryant today, and we've been meeting with the Department of Labour and Training at another function today as well. But it's been, I must say, we've been here I've been at the helm of WaterRower for 20 years, and it's only now that we're kind of getting some of this information through. So, you know, not to be critical, but I think that obviously that communication can be better. Easier to come, and we did it through the local chambers and stuff, just got involved with the chambers, and a gentleman decided to form a CEOs, manufacturer CEOs group, and it really came together through that. So it does eventually happen, but it's surprising for me about how long it has taken. You know.
Yeah, we got to make sure that we shortcut that situation and tell
everyone's trying very hard, but it's it does take time for this stuff to percolate through the system, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And then finally, to take 3 points like Peter has, but and you mentioned it about trying to streamline, and Mike mentioned about the problems not the problems, but the difficulties, the hurdles we went through in getting our facility developed, and boy, it was tough, you know. It was really difficult, but you know, a lot of the checks and balances we had to overcome, I think everyone wanted it to happen, but there was all these checks and balances in place to just make sure the wrong development didn't happen. And it would have been nice if there was a process in place and Commerce Rhode Island was very supportive of us, but you know, you still need to go through all these checks and balances at the local level.
It's mentioned everywhere we go, so it's not
absolutely.
And that's why when I did the stuff on the electric stuff and trying to make sure that there was accountability inside of the working with, particularly with the business and that interaction, when I hear it in one spot of the state, another side of another, we need to do a better job at that. Steve, quickly, and then Mike.
I'd like to follow up on this point really quickly about the regulatory environment, but perhaps not the way you might be thinking, because regulations are absolutely critically important, and nothing is more important than health and safety. But the way you deliver the message, I think, could sometimes be could be a little bit more friendly. So I'll give you for example. There's 4 magic words you could use. How can I help? Yeah. So there's a big difference between walking in and saying, that's wrong, you need to do this, and you know, I think there may be a better way to do it. How can I help you get there? So it's more about the attitude around the way the regulations are enforced than it is the regulatory environment itself.
Mike, I've got to take yours off air. I think that we're run out of time.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you for joining in. If you're thinking about doing business in the Rhode Island and doing that business outside the state, outside the country, these are very good resources to rely on, and come to our office. We'll be very happy to help. Thank you all for joining us on Advanced Rhode Island.